Ba-la-la-la.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Pick every movie that you would have hated it. Jim will be going into his one bucket.
Yeah. So are we in yet? Can we officially
I think we
begin
are.
the episode?
Listen, people just keep listening to us, and we just keep rambling on. At
Yes,
some point, we got to
yes.
hit record, right?
And hey, I want to defend my choice. Speaking of my one bucket choices, last week
We weren't attacking you.
I had no. You weren't attacking me, but you can attack the movies all you want, and so I would too. But let me just point out that Megaforce was disparaged last week for being a 3.9. Thunder Force is only 4.2. So it's only mere points.
Wow.
It's only mere points
Mere
above
points.
Megaforce.
Well, I mean, part of that, I think, is like this internet hatred for Melissa McCarthy, which I really don't comprehend. So,
Listen, either you get her or you don't.
yeah.
Because when you go into a Melissa McCarthy movie, she plays the same character in every movie.
I really
it's
think there's
just-
it's not just her. I mean, I think
No,
there's
it's
an
just
unusual
negative.
amount of
Yeah.
negative energy toward female comics in general.
Well, comedy is subjective, I think.
Well, it
period.
is.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
But like,
Should
definitely.
I make that the
like,
headline of Instagram this week? Comedy is
Yes,
subjective.
yes.
But I do think that like people like Amy Schumer and Melissa McCarthy get it way worse from the internet hordes than,
Well, I will
You know.
agree. Yes. Look at that. The female-driven Ghostbusters.
which is ridiculous because I love that movie.
Mm.
I think it's hilarious. I think a lot of people just like, took a swing. It's like no one's taking Ghostbusters away from you, man. And by the way, Ghostbusters 2 sucks. Something, I think I just wanted to say that, I think that like at least part of the rankings for Thunder Force come from like this thing where people are just like, I hate Melissa McCarthy. I'm just gonna go online and like slam everything that she does.
And while I'm at it, I'm gonna give a 1-star review to Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I do
No,
feel like
it's-
in a sense, I feel like reviews for recent movies are less valid than reviews for older movies.
I agree.
Does
I
that make
agree.
sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, because a lot of new movies, you need time to
Mhm.
let it sit with you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything. You can't really.
Look how many movies over the years that are
talk about
considered
you, Jeff.
classics now. Yeah.
Let's talk about you.
Oh,
And Kong versus Godzilla. I think that if you sit with it, maybe years it might.
I
take.
agree with you. I said I need to go back and rewatch this. Yes, laid my cards on the table last week. I was very disappointed, in my opinion, and I was very frustrated because, maybe next week I'll watch it and I'll just dive into it, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, first
I can just
impressions
look past.
aren't always accurate. So yeah, I totally agree that you got to take a new review with a grain of salt.
It's also throwaway culture now too, because it's
Yeah.
so easy on streaming Netflix to watch 10 minutes of it and just give up and go online and be like, this thing's a steaming pile of crap and I couldn't even sit through it. That's not a review.
Right.
It's Sharon Maslin back in the day walking out. What movie was it she walked out of and then gave
Dawn
it
of
a
the
bad
Dead.
review?
Dawn of the
Dawn
Dead.
of the Dead. Yeah.
But
Well, she was
they-
accurate on that one. No, I'm kidding.
But she did at least admit in the review that she'd
That
only
she-
watched
Mhm.
a very small part of it.
Then
But
you shouldn't even be writing a review.
I agree. I mean, I don't
Says
think
the guy
it's-
who walked out of the departed.
I don't think it's a fair assessment, but
Yeah.
it definitely, and online there does tend to be like a pile up thing where it's like, even if somebody liked it, they wouldn't say if 15 people in a row said the movie's garbage because they don't want to get dragged by everyone else in the comments. I tend not to like give a lot of credence to like,
Yeah.
you know, rankings and stuff for movies that have come out in the last couple of years because
So let it fester until it
Yeah.
becomes a mega force.
You know, even if I don't appreciate a movie that I watch for this show, going into recording, I actually try to make an effort to not say bad things
Mhm.
about it because I
What's
don't
the
want to
fun
be
in
that
that?
person,
Yeah.
you know, unless it's a complete crap fest. But, you know, maybe I didn't like Thunder Force that much,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to.
We're way getting ahead of ourselves here because we haven't even.
It's still an interesting conversation.
I agree.
Yes,
I
yes.
agree. I absolutely agree. So
And
if anybody doesn't know, we're talking Thunder Force this week.
But again, it's all subjective. It's only it's opinions. That's all. It doesn't
Mhm.
mean that that the movie in question is bad or good. It's just our opinion of it,
Yes.
except in some cases. Asterisks.
Asterisks.
Some we can't deny,
Great.
but
Asterisk Condor Man.
Oh, there it goes.
and
What
you
are
know
we? What are we? 7 minutes in? Condor Man.
it continues to fascinate me talking about Janet Maslin that she did walk out of Dawn of the Dead because I watch crappy movies on a regular basis. I go through Amazon and just pick whatever comes up, whatever they tell me that they think that I would like, and I usually watch.
Wow.
And
you're
depending,
just. Oh.
even if I like it or if I don't like it, for example, I watched Leviathan last night, which is a 1989 movie
Yep,
with Peter
I
Weller.
know it well.
And a lot of other big names are in this thing.
And that came out at the same time as Deep
Star
Six. All
The
those
Abyss,
undersea
there was a lot
monsters.
of
Yep.
undersea stuff coming out in the late 80s. And the Leviathan is a complete ripoff of Alien and The Thing and a number of different movies. But I still enjoyed it. And I always look and I read stuff about it after I watch it online. And invariably, there is a Janet Maslin review for all of these crappy movies. And I think to myself, she sat through
that.
Leviathan
Right.
and she walked out of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
I cannot reconcile that.
All right. Can I ask you one question though? So if Amazon or Netflix recommends a movie to you and you're like, this is a 96% match to the crap that you're watching, and then you watch it and you don't like it, do you post stars? Do you review it and be like, no, this is not what I like?
No,
So stop
because
recommending
I
this
think
crap?
I would have thought that I would have liked this too.
But you don't go in and
I don't review them. No,
you don't review them.
no.
I think we should start doing that on IMDb. So,
Hmm.
should we talk some news first before we
Sure.
get into this Thunder Force again? Oh, what are we pairing up with Thunder Force, by the way, Christina?
Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. And I actually thought this was a pretty cool pairing. All right, so let's get into it because if you listened last week, you know that we completely skipped the news just so we could dive into Godzilla versus Kong. So some of this is going to be considered old news if you actually pay attention, but some of the stuff I want to talk about. So we'll just hit through the tops and hopefully it'll generate some conversation. If not, we'll just move on. Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which is in production now, and they just announced like this full cast, and it's pretty substantial. I think the coolest news is the fact that they are bringing back Bonnie Peace and Joel Edgerton, who played Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen in the prequels. So this is set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So there's no casting for a young Luke Skywalker, but he has to be present in there somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have Kumail, I'm going to butcher his name, Nanjiani?
Kumail Nanjiani.
So close. So close. Indira Varma, who's from Game of Thrones, I think
I
last time we
love
saw her.
Indira Varma. She is one of my favorite actresses of all time. Ever since I saw her on Rome on HBO
yes, that's
years
right.
ago.
Oh, that was years ago, yeah.
And
Moses
I think
Ingram, yeah.
I just love her. And I just think she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever
I
seen.
agree with you. I think she is so unique looking. She is, yes, yeah. She's like that Gal Gadot kind of, like the camera loves her.
Mm-hmm.
So Sung Kang, O'Shea Jackson Jr., and Moses Ingram. It looks like it's a really mixed cast. Obviously, there's no names attached to any of these actors. But I'm excited for this. And obviously, you have Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen returning, how that's going to play out. I do know that people are balking at the fact that this is really only 7 years prior to when, A New Hope, when we were first introduced to Luke Skywalker. And the big joke is the fact that, the age difference between what we see Uncle Owen, what he looks like in the original, and then even Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I'm thinking to myself, there's 2 sons. So what's to stop the set that one rotation is equal to 2 years our time. So maybe the Luke we're seeing, he's really only 7 years old.
Imagine the sunscreen that you need on.
Yeah, SPF 5000.
Yeah,
that's what I need now. So if I went to Tatooine, I'd just explode. So yeah, so I thought that was cool. The casting is out there. We'll stay in the Star Wars universe a little bit, which is Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who was in Solo, has been cast in James Mangold's Indiana Jones 5, which is still set to drop on 2022. Yeah, Andy's going to be 110 years old.
Do we think that they should leave this franchise alone?
Yes, I think when it didn't happen pre-COVID, they should have just said, he's 78 years old, if not older at this point.
And like super grumpy, by the way. like he's the grumpiest interview I've ever seen.
Yeah, he reminds me of my grandfather at this point. And I think that was actually a note that J.J. Abrams gave him when they brought him back in for The Force Awakens. He says, I can't have you playing this grumpy Harrison Ford. You have to be Han Solo. Funny when I'm sure that was met with enthusiasm.
I'm sure,
yeah. All right, kill me off. He's been begging to be killed off since Jedi. What was funny though is that I was researching this a little bit. In IMDb, there's a trailer for Indiana Jones and the Sanctuary of the Black Order, and it's a fan-made film, but in Spain, that looks like it's already dropped in theaters in January and is making money. All different actors playing these characters in Spanish. But I found that fascinating. So it's only a matter of time before there's a cease and desist. I can't imagine that Lucasfilm and Disney are going to allow these people to keep using Indiana Jones' name. Let's see. Oh, Wonder Years reboot. Are you too young or too old to watch Wonder Years back in the day?
I was definitely too young, but I did see it.
So of it.
Yeah, it didn't have the same kind of relevance for me, certainly, that it would have had.
I mean, I was older than the characters, but I still listen.
That was 88, right? So I was 17, I think, when that
was it 88
premiered.
That late?
I think it was 88.
I want to say I was watching it in high school, but maybe not. Anyways, they're rebooting this, and Don Cheadle is looked to be set as the narrator. So
Don Cheadle's great.
So it's my guess it's an all new cast. It's an all new, and I think that was so. If that took place in the late 80s, but it was like
late 60s,
late 60s.
It took place in the late 60s.
So if they follow that formula, are we talking like late 90s?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Do we have that much, nostalgia for the
you and I
Britney
may not.
Spears
I
era?
barely remember the 90s, but I just remember hunkering down for Y2K.
I'm going to be that guy again. The Wonder Years, even at the gentle age of 17 or whatever I was when I first saw it, I only think watched the first season before I lost interest.
Really?
But,
okay.
But I noticed that Fred Savage's character had the pinups from the Beatles' White Album on his wall. Yet the White Album was released in November 1968. Yeah,
you are that guy.
The show was set earlier in 1968. Yeah. I'm
curious if some of the songs that they used were actually relevant or out of time, because I do remember there being a hearty soundtrack.
Yes, there was.
Anyways, so I thought that was interesting. So speaking of Don Cheadle, we haven't seen him show back up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll get into that, but we need some War Machine to step in here at some point. We got 2 episodes left. Russell Crowe is set for an unspecified role in Thor: Love and Thunder. Any speculation?
Jor-El.
I think he's already done that. They're crossing universes. This is the Taika Waititi / Zack Snyder universe. Well, Christian Bale, I guess his character is Gore the God Butcher. I don't know who that is. I'm not familiar with that character at all. But I do know that Beta Ray Bill is showing up in this.
Really?
And he is uncredited. So could we go Korg / Taika Waititi? Just, even though what they're doing with Sylvester Stallone and the King Shark, completely CG character, and he's just providing the voice.
Is that a spoiler that Beta Ray Bill is going to be in this?
He's not. Well, he's listed in IMDb. If it's a spoiler, I apologize. I think it's. Well, we saw his head. We saw his head in Ragnarok. They had all the characters. All right. If I spoiled it, I spoiled it. Sorry, Jim. My only other news. Oh no, I got 2. Knives Out. They're making 2 sequels direct to Netflix. and they're going to be centering around Daniel Craig's character. I think his name was Foghorn Leghorn. Right. I say, boy.
Funny because I never thought he sounded like Foghorn Leghorn. I always thought he sounded like Shelby Foote, the writer Shelby Foote. If you've ever seen,
Well, that just shows your point of view for that you're a little more highbrow than I am, because I'm watching freaking Looney Tunes cartoons going, that's Foghorn Leghorn.
See, now I was thinking Colonel Sanders.
Well, we're gonna go off on a tangent there. I just listened to a podcast about the rise of Harlan Sanders into the fried chicken industry. And finally, I just wanted yesterday, April 9th, is today 10th. New Mutants dropped on HBO Max. Go watch that and then come back and listen to our review, which we did over a year ago. So that's all the news I have, which was a lot, but there you go. Anything else? Anything you guys came across? Then let's get into it.
let's get into it.
Thunder Force.
Netflix
Ho!
film
Mhm.
starring Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, a superhero comedy. Now, they play the characters of Lydia Berman, that's Melissa McCarthy, and Emily Stanton, Octavia Spencer. They play two childhood friends, both outcasts that find each other in school. It's a very sweet opening, as a matter of fact.
It totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you really get to see, like, Lydia is a very, very, like, fundamentally warm-hearted character. And you see this throughout, even when they have Melissa McCarthy doing like her goofy Melissa McCarthy things, like you still see that she's just fundamentally a good person. So she sticks up for Emily, who's mocked by a boy in class for being a nerd.
How dare you, right away. And I love this. I want to make a shirt of this, which is I'm not a nerd. I'm smart. There's a difference. I will say that these child actors were spot on.
Mhm.
Then when I started doing research, it's Melissa McCarthy's daughter
Mhm.
that plays her.
Really?
In the
I
first,
didn't know
the
that.
early one. Yeah, well, Vivian Falcone, obviously Melissa McCarthy's husband, Ben Falcone, wrote and directed this.
And he also played Kenny.
Yeah, I know. We'll get into Kenny as well. 'Cause I think they were
Kenny.
setting us up for Kenny to die, just so
Kenny
we
who
can.
got his face burned.
So yeah, I'm like, wow, these actors are like spot on to these, and then you're like, oh, that's why.
And we do
Okay,
have a
cool.
pretty standard superhero origin story in Emily here. Her parents are killed. They are geneticists who are trying to stop the miscreants. So this is kind of like a weird X-Men, mutation thing going on. Pulses of cosmic rays in March 1983.
Gamma
Head
radiation,
up here,
right?
like gamma radiation.
Yeah.
These rays hit the earth and it brings out powers in those that are considered sociopaths, unfortunately.
That's actually a really good setup, by the
Mhm.
way.
So something
Only
in
the
the
bad.
brain, something in their brains have reacted to the cosmic ray pulses and has made them superpowered in different various ways. And of course, if you're a sociopath, you're not going to become a hero. You're going to become a villain. So these are called miscreants. Now, we assume that miscreants have killed Emily's parents, although you don't really find out ever what really happened. You just kind of see like a green blob envelop the train that they're on, and then they're dead. So she doesn't really get to target the very miscreants that have killed her parents, but in general, she wants to continue on their work and stop the miscreants herself. And she is definitely armed to do so because she is extremely smart, a genius level.
Yep.
The pair of them kind of go their separate ways as they grow up. They grow apart. Lydia is not really satisfied and she wants to reconnect with Emily, who is really kind of grown into her genius, running the Stanton Industries to become superpowered. And she has developed a formula to do so. And this is when Lydia reconnects with Emily.
And I want to go back to like this thing where I feel like Lydia is sort of fundamentally warm-hearted. There's a scene early on where Laser, who's a major villain in the film, is attacking and she shoots the wing off a stone angel in a church. And Lydia goes back and like duct tapes the wing back
you're
on.
right, though. And she immediately asked the people next to her if they were okay.
Yeah. Like,
So you're right. Like she does
yes,
have that gooey
she's
center to
playing
her that she's
a little bit of like a stereotype of a blue collar schlub, and specifically a Chicago blue collar schlub. Let me tell you that as a Chicago resident, my husband and I were laughing our butts off at like a lot of the references in this film.
I was gonna say, did you like just fundamental? You have to like this because it takes place in Chicago, right? As a Chicagoan, it's your duty.
And when she takes the can of Old Style out of her thermos, we
Uh-huh.
were both like, "So Chicago," because
Old
like
Style and Schlitz.
Old Style is the
Schlitz,
like, and
yes.
she's a Cubs fan.
Oh
And you're
yeah.
at a Cubs game, you
Yep.
drink Old Style. Okay, that's how it goes.
That is how it goes.
And
It's good to know.
and she's she she's always like talking about how great Chicago is. She's like, it's the best city in the world. The
Right.
Bears, the Cubs,
Yep.
she's got like all this sports gear all around. But she reconnects with Emily because they're having this high school reunion.
Yeah.
And again, like there's this sweetness there. She says she goes to Emily's office and she says, I remembered that you don't like to go to parties by yourself. So I came to get you, So like
That was after she sent her a text message and Emily's like, yeah, I'll be there kind of, and then doesn't show
right,
up.
right,
So she leaves the party to go and try and retrieve her.
right. So
But part of it, I mean, they left on uneasy terms too,
right.
as kids. So I think that also weighs on her that she wants to reconnect and kind of.
And this is one of the funnier scenes in the movie when she shows up at her office building, a little buzzed, and is trying to get by the security in the
She's my
lobby.
friend. Right.
And then she actually gets the security guard to call upstairs and then says, oh, she'll see you now. That's not
He's
how
like, I don't believe this
go at all. Yeah.
Right? That's not how I thought it was going to go at all. Yeah, because she's dressed in like army fatigues. She's got the army jacket that she probably found at Goodwill. Her name doesn't even match what her last name is.
She has her Slayer shirt.
Slayer, yes,
Mm-hmm.
which plays in a couple times there.
I mean, one thing I have to say about Melissa McCarthy, which I admire, is that she always kind of commits to making herself look unattractive. Because she's actually like she's quite cute, and you never see how cute she is in her movies.
And this is the type of character, this working class character that speaks to a large general audience. And that is her strength, is that she speaks to a lot of people out there.
Yeah, because
and
she
knows
does
it,
basically play the exact same character in every one of her movies.
Yes, her appearance in this movie does serve the character greatly.
And she's also like, she's very willing to go into it physically,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, much more so. I mean, especially once you get into the superhero aspects of it, you kind of see that Octavia, it doesn't get as much to do as McCarthy does, where she's jumping around because obviously she's got superpowers. She's got, super strength, where Emily just has the ability to turn invisible.
But again, they're both funny. Literally in the film, she doesn't have as much to do because of the powers, but she's also kind of playing the straight man.
I was going to say, she is Abbott to
the Abbott to the Costello.
Right? Absolutely. Let's bring up Laser, which is the lamest superhero name ever. But that's Mantis from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, there's actually some great secondary characters in here. Jason Bateman, obviously.
He steals this movie. Which is funny because the minute he shows up on screen, my wife's like, they're back together. And I forgot that they were in Identity Theft, which is a great movie.
Yes.
The two of them together is so much fun. But he steals this movie.
He does.
And the one thing that I wanted to see more of was these miscreants, which outside of Laser, she's like the only true threat, except for the King, who's just, again, a businessman in a suit who, the minute he shows up, you're like, oh, this guy's working with these people.
Bobby Cannavale, he plays one of the best jerk scumbags. If you need a villain and you need a smarmy, really full of himself villain, this should be your first go-to guy. At the minute he shows up on screen, he's the bad guy.
And the thing I love too, again, like just going back to that Chicago connection, throughout he wears these real like 40s gangster style suits. So he looks very much like, an old school mobster from Chicago. And he looks good in them. So like he has this whole kind of 40s aesthetic that like I approve of.
I approve of.
And let me tell you, they didn't take great pains to hide the fact that Melissa Leo was up to no good either. The fact that she leaves the scene before anything bad happens.
I know. Yeah, before it all goes. Yeah, you saw that as being a setup. And
There's
Go
so
ahead.
many like gags that I love in this movie, like the whole thing with the car. You know, first when they see the Lamborghini and
And then actually trying to get in.
right, and
Get in and out
Lydia's
of it.
when they see it, and Lydia's like, "Can I say something?" And Emily's like, "No." She's like, "This car makes me ovulate." She's like, I knew.
Which is a funny line.
She's like, "I knew I didn't
Yeah.
want to hear this."
Yeah. But this was
Uh,
after she gets the superpower, you know,
Right.
and they put on the Baymax level suits, which is fun. But yeah, like, you know, Jim was bringing up the fact that, you know, Lydia goes to Emily's office and inadvertently gets shot with the serum and is now ingested, or it was injected into her.
Yeah. Did they explain
Yeah.
why you need to inject it directly into your face?
Because it's funny.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason. It's a sight gag. That's all it is. But now they got to keep her under wraps because they said if you stop the injections, now your body's going to violently explode. They did say diarrhea is 100% certainty. So stand back.
Seriously.
But the weird side effect is that she eats or craves raw chicken, which is just disgusting. It's horrible. And they play
Yeah.
it for
But that
laughs.
was a roadmap. That was a total conceit to get her with the crab at the end. Oh, that's just like the raw chicken that I eat in the cages.
I've created a raw chicken monster.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, so now all of a sudden she's a superhero and she's under wrap. Did she quit her job?
She
Because
must
she
have.
never goes back to her job. She just becomes a superhero. It's like who's lifting those
She
cranes?
lives off the goodwill of the people now, just like Sam.
There you go.
Well, she
Yeah.
does say we don't want a reward, but we would like to throw out the first pitch at a Cubs game.
That's right. Yes.
And hopefully they'll be able to adjust those suits where they can wash them in the sequel.
Yeah.
That was right. What's that smell? It's the suit. We can't wash them.
So there's a little bit of not like a big subplot, but a little bit of subplot featuring Emily's daughter Tracy, who's clearly just like her mom, but is also has a little bit more of like I don't know, not necessarily a rebellious streak, but more is a little more fun loving. She's like really gets along with Lydia,
Mhm.
and that sometimes comes into conflict with what
Well,
her
it's because her
mom
mom's so
wants
straight
for her.
laced.
Yeah.
You know?
I especially really enjoy like Jason Bateman and Melissa McCarthy together. They,
Yes,
because you
yeah.
can tell that they've worked together before and they have that chemistry and sort of
Mhm.
that ease that you
Yes.
get. And to a certain extent, like, I mean, it's like Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone, they're married. They're making a fun movie for themselves with their friends. Octavia Spencer has been Melissa McCarthy's
Yeah,
friend
I
for
read
like
that.
25
Yeah,
years.
I read that. That's crazy.
You know, so, and you can just tell they're kind of having fun with their friends, which is always, I think, a fun thing.
Yeah. I did find it funny because you not have one, but you have two Oscar winners in this movie. You know, Best Supporting Actor with Melissa Leo and Octavia Spencer.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, listen, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And like you said, once Jason Bateman comes into the scene,
Mhm.
you know, and he's got these crab claw arms and he explains that he's a half Korean. She's like half Korean? No,
Yeah.
half Korean. Running butter joke and the old I was grocery shopping and I came across Old Bay and just laughed out loud.
Was she sprinkling the Old Bay seasoning on him?
Yeah.
She has this whole dream sequence with him, and at one point, you know, obviously she sleeps with him, and the next day Emily's like, she's like, did you get surf and turfed?
Yes. But I think Jason Bateman's biggest strength is to deliver these ridiculous lines with a straight face.
Straight faced.
As a comedic actor, he is probably one of the best that's out there. And I don't think that he gets enough credit for it because he's good in anything that he does.
Yeah.
Drama, comedy, what have you. But the fact when he's trying to explain to her that he was bit on the genitals by a radioactive crab
with a straight
so
face.
matter of factly, you know, like during dinner conversation.
Yes.
So these are the highlights. And I completely agree that he, for me, is the best thing about this movie is Jason Bateman. The King, also a highlight, killing his henchman. Kenny, we talked about.
They set this up just so you could do an Eric Cartman voice. They killed Kenny, you bastards!
Because after he kills Kenny, one of the henchmen, as he's complaining about Thunder Force, the King, one of his henchmen says, I'm not so sure they're going to be that easy to kill, boss. And then he says, come here. And the guy says, no, I'm good right here. And then he kills him anyway.
There you
Mhm.
go. And we find out that he's a miscreant.
And then Andrew, poor Andrew, the other henchman.
Yeah, the one that he really wanted to kill, right? And who's completely incompetent just throughout, it's like Andrew's all that's left. By the way, I also love I love grandma. I love Emily's grandma.
Mm-hmm.
When she put the wedding cake topper on the table, I was like, oh, like she's been waiting all these years for them to become a couple. And then they were like, no, we're not. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, you could at
Oh,
least try.
Grandma with high hopes there.
Oh, it was so cute. I thought that was the cutest thing.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this. Like,
Yeah, we did it. We did as well. We chuckled.
like
Yeah.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was sweet. I thought it had, like I said, sort of like a sweet center. It's not super cynical like a lot of comedies now. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I did want to see more miscreants, though. I want to see more mutants. but-
I'd like to see a crab movie. I don't know.
Can you take that much of him, though?
I don't know if the crab could carry his own movie, but I like the idea. My takeaway from this is that I could not believe, and I had to fact check this, that Smuggler's Blues was #1 for 11.
Oh, that's true.
Really?
Glenn Fry.
And the funniest thing about that was, like, as soon as that music starts playing, you know the words whether you like the song
Oh, hell
or
yeah.
not.
Because
Yeah.
you saw the damn video a million times.
Not only that, that was. I think they based an entire Miami Vice episode around that song with Glenn Fry.
And it was so funny because it started playing and my husband's like, no. And then I was like,
yes, just let it happen.
and I was like, but I know the words even though I don't even like this song.
it's
And he's
just
like, you
Smuggler's
can't help
Blues.
it.
And then during the dance sequence, they cue up Fry again with "You Belong to the City."
Yes.
Mhm.
Another song that you can't help know the words to.
Yeah.
And then when they were singing the Seal song, I thought it was
Yes.
hilarious.
Yeah.
She put the music inside the suit. Such to calm her down.
There was a couple really nice musical cues in this. Early on, they actually used AC/DC's "It's a Long Way to the Top," and I can't hear that song without thinking School of Rock. So that immediately took me out. But otherwise, yeah, some of the musical stuff was fun. It's completely predictable. It's not, you're not getting, you know what you're getting in for.
Mm-hmm. But it was
You
very
know, there's
fun. I enjoyed.
some cheesy. I really thought after watching this that My Super Ex-Girlfriend would have been a pretty comparable pairing. Obviously, Mystery Men more so, but we already covered that. And Christina, you actually called that.
Well, I said didn't count because I wasn't here.
It's
Get it started over again.
true. We could just go back and cut you into that episode. I will tell you though that I thought this was fun that the raw chicken is actually really thinly sliced pears with food coloring and citric acid, treated with citric acid. So,
I thought
but
maybe it
looked-
might be sushi. It looked a little sushi-like. but
Yeah,
then
I can
guess-
imagine sushi on a set though. How long would that last? That's even worse.
Well,
than
or like
probably-
if she has to do multiple takes.
right,
You know,
yeah.
like you
No,
don't want to
it was pears.
That
Yeah.
was very difficult for me to watch.
Mhm.
Those
Right, yeah, it's disgusting. It's horrible. And you know what it reminded me of, Jim, was you remember when the character of Robin in the V series, when she's pregnant with the alien baby and
Yes,
she goes
yeah.
into the refrigerator and eats the raw liver? Like that's still nightmare inducing to me.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So what kind of buckets would we give it?
I'd give it a solid 3 1/4.
I would give it a 3.5.
I would go 3, but the crab, I think, brings it up. So I'm going to say 3 1/4 as well.
So would you butter his knuckle?
I mean, part of it, yes, he's really funny, but he needs that person to play off of. That's why I'm saying, like, together, they're like magical because they just really have that. When he winks at her the first time, I don't know, I just couldn't stop laughing.
That's when she launches into the dream sequence.
Yes,
right?
I know, the
yeah.
dance.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, and you're just like, what are we doing here? And then you're just like, just go with it. Just,
her hair is crimped.
right.
You know?
Right. Like she just came out of a prom from '86.
And you know what?
Yes.
I love that. Just bringing a little bit of his dramatic chops into it. Like when they first have their first interaction during the robbery of the convenience store. And then there's the dance sequence, right? And then they're leaving. And he says to her, what are you going to do? Kill us? we're leaving now, and then they
Right.
leave, right? So, but he's absolutely right. It's like they're not made for that.
Yep. There you go.
All
Well,
right,
check it out.
So let's leave Thunder Force, go to the concession stand, and then let's talk about Big Hero 6.
All right, let's go.
Ah, hello there. Give the demonstration of my new invention, the goodies machine. The machine turns out delicious hot doggies one after the other. And thirst-quenching sodas also. Gives popcorn of the most tasty kind, plain unbuttered. Candy too, crunchy and dandy. Steaming hot coffee and ice cream too. These goodies are at a snack bar just waiting for you.
Okay, we're back. And Big Hero 6, 2014, the first time that Disney put their hands on a Marvel property.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Which was a book by Man of Action, and he's credited here. Now, were either of you familiar with the characters before seeing
No.
Big Hero 6? Neither
Nope.
was I.
No, and I think that they deviated greatly from.
Yeah, because I was
the
looking myself
characters.
to see what the original looked like. Baymax was a synthetic bodyguard to Hero, but he had the ability to change into a dragon. So he was not a healthcare companion in the
Interesting.
original. And we did have Honey Lemon, we did have Go-Go, but those were the only two other characters that
I thought
survived.
Wasabi was in there.
I
He
didn't
had a-
see Wasabi.
Okay.
Maybe, but I didn't. In my research, I didn't see Wasabi.
Gotcha.
I don't want
But I did think this was a really good pairing just because we had the crab and then we had Fred's sea monster with the claws, and I'm like, oh, we got two giant crabs going on here.
I was thinking more in terms of, in this, they don't change their bodies, in order to become heroes. They use like
Right.
scientific modifications, though.
Yeah, and they both
So-
ride the nerd bus to the
Yes.
the fact that this was probably only the second or third time I did see it in the theater with my kids, but like I don't remember the end sequence at all. And obviously there is a substantial end credit scene, which I don't think I've ever seen. So I've never sat through the credits.
Oh, did you watch it this time though?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Yeah.
I purposely sat through it. Yeah.
Um,
Disney Plus likes to, wants you to jump off and go somewhere else. And I'm like, no, I'll sit right here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I like about this film. I mean, first of all, I want to live in San Francisco.
Yeah, I can't even say it. I would be
Yeah.
like,
Which is
San Francisco.
fascinating that they created a whole alternative timeline so
Yes.
there's a backstory to the city that's never explored in the movie. They explain that after the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, that San Francisco was rebuilt by Japanese immigrants, hence what
Right.
you see in the
Yep.
movie, which is
Yeah.
great, but they never really say that.
was all no, and it's complete departure from the comics. That was all John Lasseter, by the way, who recommended that. And it's beautiful, like you said, it's beautiful to look at the mishmash of the two different cultures. You're looking at San Francisco, you know what San Francisco looks like with the wharf and the Golden Gate Bridge, but it just has that Asian influence to it. It's really cool. It's really neat. It's nice.
Yeah, and there's a lot to like here. The relationship between Tadashi and Hiro, which reminds me a lot of the relationship between Lilo and Nani in Lilo and Stitch, because it's a very similar situation. Even
Yeah.
though technically Cass is their guardian, it's very clear that Tadashi does more of the sort of active parenting
Hmm.
of Hiro. And Cass loves them, but like she says, maybe I should have bought a book about parenting.
Yeah, a little late now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both like the browbeat and grab him by the ears. Poor Hero.
But poor Tadashi. In a lot of these really effective Disney films, there has to be a sacrifice for the main character to grow. And unfortunately, it's Tadashi here. And it's heartbreaking because you get to know him and you love him. In the limited screen time that he has at the beginning, just how he saves Hiro from the bot fight in the beginning
Yeah.
with little Yama. And I'm still convinced to this day, and I have a hard time reconciling that it's not him, that Yama was voiced by John C. Reilly. It's not the case at all.
It's
But
not
I
the
want it
case.
to be.
You want it to be.
But yeah,
But you're right.
Tadashi,
He's such an earnest character that you just, yeah.
saves him, gets him to go to the nerd school, introduces him to all of his friends, changes the course of his life in the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie. And then he's ripped away from Hero and the audience as well.
Yep.
But they do bring him back into great effect toward the end there, which I
So yeah, let's talk about the opening, which is great. The bot fight where Hero
real steel, baby. Yeah, you think they're like these giant robots beating each other up in their little tiny 4-foot little.
But Hero's a hustler. He knows damn well that.
Yeah, that's like the oldest grift in the world, man. You know, you go walk into a pool hall and you slap your money down and you play a really bad game. No, let me get my money back, and then you hustle them.
He's got those big eyes with the innocent little boy act like, I've never done this before.
Yeah, but he's got one hell of a bankroll there. Yeah.
Because he probably just came from another bot fight across town and won all that money.
Yeah. This is how he's spending his day.
So he's invented these little microbot things that are like magnetic. They come together. He calls it Megabot, right? His bot fighting robot is comprised of these microbots. Megabot takes out, once his happy face switches to a very angry face.
That's all it takes.
Takes out little Yama very easily. And then Big Yama realizes that he's been hustled. And then it's Tadashi to the rescue that gets Hero just in time for the police to show up as well. And everybody ends up in jail, which is funny because you see Hero by himself in his cell and Tadashi is staring at him angrily. And he's stuck in the cell with Big Yama and all the other gangsters that you saw at the bot fight previously. But this compels Tadashi to bring Hero to the school and introduce him to all of his friends, to try to spark something in him, because we learn that Hero is a genius, just like Tadashi is. He graduated high school at 13, but it's been a year. So he's 14 during the events of the movie. So it's been a year since he's graduated high school, and he's not been in school since then. So Tadashi is trying to spark that in him and hoping that him seeing what happens at this school might make him want to join in, and it's successful.
He goes around the lab and he sees what everybody is working on.
Yeah.
And there's so many great characters here that are established really quickly. You have Gogo, who's like super tough. I read that they wanted her to be like a female version of Clint Eastwood. And she has that kind of like silent, steely-eyed quality. She's serious when she takes her gum out of her mouth. Like throughout the movie, when she gets serious about something, she takes the gum out. You have Wasabi, who's very meticulous, and you have Honey Lemon, actually is one of my favorite characters because I love what she represents on screen. In a lot of movies, you see these characters where the stereotype is the female nerd is that she's unattractive and she's not feminine. But Honey Lemon is attractive and she is feminine, but she's also super smart.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that kind of representation on screen.
She was actually my favorite of the characters because she's compassionate. That comes through in waves from that character, that she is so caring about Hero from the second that she meets him.
She's very nurturing. Yeah.
Yeah. This is my favorite character by far.
Well, it'll come as no surprise that Fred's my favorite character.
Right. And Fred is a quote unquote science enthusiast. And
he doesn't even go to the school, right?
Yeah. And Gogo said, as she says later, she thinks he lives under a bridge. But
no, we find out that is not the case whatsoever. But all Fred wants is he wants them to turn him into a radioactive lizard so that he can go stomping around the city.
And let me tell you, for all of Wasabi's anal retentiveness, his first meeting with Hero could have been tragic. Wasabi needs some safety cones set up around his area so nobody walks into and decapitates themselves on his invisible lasers. Hero meets the gang, and as he's walking out with Tadashi, says, I have to go here. I have to go to this nerd school, and is really excited. So the next step is for Hero to impress Professor Callahan at the student showcase. And
that's after we're also introduced to Tadashi's creation, which is Baymax. Yes, that's where we're introduced to Baymax. That he is this emergency health provider. And this whole thing is based on real science. The Carnegie Mellon University has this soft robotics that this is really designed around. They get credit at the end of the movie. So there's a lot of real world stuff going on that they've incorporated into this, because it seems very fantastical that he's this inflatable robot kind of a thing, but very
but
cool.
the whole fact of that he is the robot is encased in this soft huggable vinyl.
Yes,
like
spooning
outer
a warm
shell.
marshmallow.
It was like so this is based in reality as well. So in reading some stuff about this, how the directors wanted the robot to be lovable, but they didn't really know how to go about it, like physically. And then once the idea of the vinyl came into it, it was like, oh, and just as they say, like a big walking marshmallow that you can just bury yourself in.
Yeah, this character is. I mean, we still walk around and go. Blah, 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 blah.
More than half of it is brought by Scott Adsit, who voices Baymax, who gives him that lovable personality.
Yeah, he has so many great lines. Like actually the first time they fist bump, he says, I will add fist bump to my caregiving matrix.
So we get the student showcase. You're thinking you're going to get a Rocky 3 montage with Eye of the Tiger. Yeah.
Right. Because now he's Callahan, lets him come and he's gonna basically audition. He's going to this big science fair and he's got to put his best foot forward. And you're right. You get the opening montage of Eye of the Tiger, and then it just dies.
Yeah.
He's like, washed up at 14. Sorry, bro.
Because he's blocked, he can't think of anything. But then he realizes instead of going big, maybe he should go small. So he looks at his Megabot and his Microbots, and that's the direction he goes in. So they bring in garbage cans full of Microbots to the student showcase, and by wearing a controlling thing around his head, a neurotransmitter is what he calls it.
Yep.
He can build with the Microbots with a thought, and it is a huge success. And he has a nice final moment with Tadashi after the student showcase, where it looks like everything is on the right path, and then tragedy strikes. If this damn girl didn't tell Tadashi that Callahan was still inside, he would still be here with us. He would still be here.
But this is also where we're introduced to Cray, and he looks like Joe Namath to me, but it's Alan Tudyk does the voice. This guy's everywhere. I feel like every week we're bringing up Alan Tudyk now.
He gets a lot of work. I'm happy for him.
He does. James Cromwell was Robert Callahan, by the way, as well. But yeah, that whole Microbot demonstration was pretty impressive, and you could easily see that the both of them are, Cray and Cromwell are both very taken aback, and Cromwell's like, here's your entrance. See you at school on Monday.
And Cray is so set up to be the bad guy here.
Oh, such a red herring.
Even the fact that he tries to steal one of the little Microbots.
Yes. Yeah.
And Tadashi calls him out on it.
Yep. So, but yeah, you're right. This is where unfortunately Tadashi runs back in to save Callahan, and boom, the whole place blows up.
Because that's his whole thing, right? He wants to help. That's why Baymax.
That's why Baymax is in existence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the thing that makes me angry about it is like Callahan didn't have to burn everything down and steal here.
There's a lot of stuff that Callahan didn't have to do.
He didn't even try to talk to Hiro. You know what I mean? He didn't even say
listen,
do you think we could do this and that? He immediately goes to this villainous.
Yeah, there is a leap in this character, because the same thing later. I don't know if we want to get into it now. We find out his motivations with his daughter, but he, once he has control of these Microbots and he's manufacturing them, he rebuilds the portal, and it's like, why did you even need these to rebuild the portal? If you could just rebuild the portal, you could have jumped through to see if she was still there, and not just immediately it's a revenge.
I don't know that he thought that she was inside the portal.
Yeah, he was, I think, more surprised as anyone that she was still in there. But he wanted to do the same thing to Cray.
Yeah.
To take away from Cray, Cray
I know, but like you said, he was willing to blow up that building with people inside of it.
But that's the thing, is that
when you open that portal, there's got to be thousands of people in this Cray Industries building.
He didn't care that any of the students were in that building when he blew it up. He had no.
So I feel his motivations were just.
He had no remorse over Tadashi either.
No, but like you said, they immediately think it's Cray, because he set up that he was trying to steal.
Hey, when I first saw this, I'm a gullible audience member. I thought it was Cray as well. Like,
Yeah.
it's that guy. It's that
Yes.
guy.
And why would you be wearing a costume in secret? Like when he first
Like,
comes across to me, he's
in
like hiding out in his secret
your
lair,
secret
and it's like he's
warehouse.
already wearing the kabuki mask and
Hey,
whatnot.
better safe than sorry, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I guess once you fake your own death, you gotta lay low. Not that, listen, this doesn't take anything away from this movie, by the way.
No, it does not.
Right? I can nitpick Kong and Godzilla, but this, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
So Hiro
Whatever.
is shattered by Tadashi's death, and he won't leave his room.
No.
And he's not starting school. You know,
I think we're shattered too.
yeah.
I mean, just
yeah.
the fact that his hat blows back and you're just like, it sucks.
Mm.
Because like you said, you become so invested in Tadashi and his motivations to help not only, you know, society as a whole, but Hiro.
Yeah. And speaking of that, you know, Baymax is left behind, and Hiro encounters Baymax one-on-one for the first time, with nobody else there. And it's what's hilarious is that Baymax becomes activated and is stuck in the corner of the room and makes an effort to get out from behind the bed and the side of the bed
There's
to
a
approach
lot of
Hiro.
sight gags.
Yes.
That poor Baymax is.
And Baymax realizes that Hiro is not in his right mind and is not completely healthy. And as a healthcare provider, he needs to help Hiro.
Yeah.
So,
on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate
mhm.
your pain?
And, you know, and informs Hiro that he's going through puberty and some changes in his body
He's like,
as well.
Stop it. Yeah.
And this is the same time that Hiro realizes that his one microbot that he has left is trying to go somewhere because it was left over in his pocket. Then he takes it out because it's moving. He puts it in a little vial, just like the thing where Kurt Russell had the blood in it. So he's got it in a little glass canister, and it's trying to move.
Yeah, this is like the screw at the end of Iron Giant trying to make its way back to the rest of the pieces.
And to get Baymax off of his back, Baymax asks him, if you can find where this thing wants to go, will you feel better? Yes, I will. And so then
just
Baymax
immediately
leaves,
yeah.
disappears.
Out in traffic.
Actually, he asks him, would that stabilize your pubescent mood swings?
Which is even better. So yes, and all of a sudden Baymax is out in the world, and he doesn't walk very good at all, very well.
I love that he doesn't
Kinda
walk very good.
waddles.
I love how he tries to run as well when he's not being
Yeah.
pulled along by Hiro before he has the armor on.
Not to go too far out of the narrative here, but I guess the animators said that he was so limited in what he could do that they actually call it unimating, not animating, because it was so limited in what his body could actually, how it could function. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, there's that line where he says, I am not fast.
Yes, no, yo, run! Yeah, because of course they do come across the. Now, did the bad guy have a name, or he was just kabuki wearing?
He was just a supervillain. You know,
Yeah.
to Fred's delight, he was just a supervillain.
Mhm.
Yeah, but that's where we end up encountering this guy, and then they do escape, and they make their way to the police station. And this scene is so hysterical to me.
But it plays off the earlier scene when they're trying to get into the warehouse, and Baymax apparently punctures
Rips,
himself in a
yeah.
few places. He says to Hiro as he's trying to get through the window, I'm going to have to let some air out. And you hear for, several seconds
Yep.
the sound of air being let out of a balloon. And then Hiro says, are you finished? As if he's relieved. Yes. He's
Right.
Fast forward, they're in the police station a little bit later.
And he's leaking air. So as Hero's trying to state his case to the police officer, Baymax is just slowly reaching over, grabbing the scotch tape and patching the holes. And it's just long drawn out scene that's just so funny. Oh man.
And the police officer has a hard time believing Hiro's story, as if he sees giant robots every
I was
day.
gonna say right, correct. Like that's just the norm. So, but then his
I know.
battery goes low, and he has to get him home back to his power station. And low battery Baymax is like that. We've all had that one drunk friend that's just an issue.
Yeah.
Trying to get him upstairs, and he's wobbling. He can't make it up. Yeah, he's trying to hide him from Aunt Cass, which is pretty funny. At one point, he blames the cat for the noise, and then all of a sudden, the cat's at his feet, and he throws the cat up the stairs. Harry, baby. Yeah.
Or Mochi's too fat to be thrown up the stairs like that.
Yeah.
I read that Lasseter did not like that line, Harry baby. and
Oh,
didn't
no?
want it in the movie, and then realized that he was wrong once he saw
He
how
was wrong, because that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Because when he finally gets upstairs, he's just like petting the cat. He's like, Harry, baby.
Once they, Hero realizes there's this villain out there who stole his microbots, he decides he wants to convert Baymax into like a hero bot, so he programs him with martial arts and all kinds of stuff. But the important thing that happens is not so much that Hero changes Baymax's programming, it's that Baymax comes to represent Tadashi to him in a really meaningful way. He's his buddy, like his brother used to be. He doesn't
Right.
replace Tadashi, but he becomes something like him.
Right. And Baymax himself says more than once, Tadashi is here.
Right.
And
and that's
literally meaning that Tadashi
He
is inside of him.
Yeah.
You could say he's in the video of him is in his disc.
No,
It's
but
inside
just-
him, but
yeah,
he's
yeah.
literally, as Christina's saying,
Yeah.
a representation of him as well.
Yeah, and that's like I said before. That's when they bring that back in, especially the video, where because Hero's losing his mind a little bit, and he's ready to do whatever it takes to get this guy down, and Baymax has to kind of bring him back to his senses. And he's like, you know what, Tadashi, isn't that what Tadashi would want? So,
But the first encounter between Hero, Baymax, and then later the whole big Hero 6 team and the supervillain is pretty spectacular. The car
yes,
chase.
that whole dock chase scene is pretty fun.
And the fact that Wasabi is stopping at red lights and signaling.
There's no stopping at red lights during the chase scene.
And then Gogo just gets on his lap and starts to drive, and then then they manage to evade the supervillain. But this is when Fred has his realization as well that mask, the black outfit, this is a supervillain, people, and he's absolutely right.
Yep.
And this is when we find out that Fred is fabulously wealthy.
Yes.
He goes to the front door. They're like, Fred, what are you doing? Come on, you're going to get caught. He's like, oh, this is my
Welcome
house.
home, master. Yeah.
Heathcliff, my man.
Yeah.
And thanks to Fred's money, they can afford to develop these super cool costumes that utilize their various skills, the things that they were developing in the lab.
Yeah, this is a great montage with the Fallout Boy song. We can be
let me
immortals.
tell you, this song is an earworm. If I've ever heard
Oh,
an
I love
earworm.
Fallout Boy. I think this was written
is-
specifically for this movie too.
Because back in the day, like in the 80s, if you had a big hit movie, the song usually became number one. But now in today's pop culture landscape, that doesn't really happen as much anymore, and everything's not as tied in to each other as it was. But I think if this was released in the 80s or even the 90s, this would have been a huge hit single because I love this song.
It is a great song.
Yeah.
And
it
it's
fits
used
perfectly
really well.
with this. Yeah, that fits perfectly with this montage of them developing their superhero skills. And, they got one plan, which is just get the mask off him. They figure out pretty quickly that he's got the neurotransmitter inside the face mask. Although the minute they face against him, they reveal exactly what they plan on doing. And it's like, go ahead, tell the bad guy what your plan is. So, but yeah, this is a lot of fun. And this is also where we get the Baymax 2.0 with the wings. And you get this beautiful flight sequence with him and Hero on the back, flying through the city. And then they end up on those giant turbines, flying above the city and just sitting there.
Which are great visuals in themselves. They're all like designed like floating fish.
Yeah, they look like Japanese kites, but they're these big turbines, wind turbines.
We do get a Rocky 3 training sequence when they're in Fred's backyard, which looks like an ancient Greek stadium. And Baymax is about to do the fist thing, and Hero's like, "Do the fist thing, do the fist thing." Ba-la-la-la. He does. No, the other fist thing.
Yeah.
And so he takes out a statue. And interestingly enough, that statue is of Hans from Frozen.
I read that and I watched it, but I didn't catch it. It goes by so quick that
I know
can't
I
tell.
couldn't freeze
Yeah.
frame it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
The other really giddy thing about the flight that Hero and Baymax take on is that Baymax realizes that it's improving Hero's outlook, and hence it's improving his health. And then he takes it up a notch where he's like falls off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and then just to give him that rush of adrenaline that he knows is helping him.
My favorite moment of that whole sequence is when they're sitting on top of the wind turbines and Hero starts wiggling his feet back and forth, and Baymax looks over, and then he starts wiggling his feet back. It's like it's such a cute little moment. Just this recognition between the two of them.
And then they realize that Baymax scanned the bad guy at one point during their first meeting.
And that's why they go up there. That's why they end up going up on top there, so we can scan the entire city and match the
match, so they could find the bad guy. And then they end up going to that quarantined island where they see the footage of Callahan's daughter being sucked into the other dimension with that failed Cray experiment. With
the government.
So you start putting things together, once you see this video. And this is so hard to watch. When they have their next fight, Hero is given Baymax some karate upgrades. Once he realizes that it's Callahan that's killed Tadashi, shows no remorse, that it's because Callahan is on this path, his brother is dead, that Hero snaps and tries to have Baymax destroy or kill Callahan, takes out the healthcare chip. So all he's got is that, the violent karate chip in there. So, and suddenly Baymax turns into the Terminator for, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yep.
And, is pushing aside the rest of the team. They're trying to stop him until finally Honey Lemon gets that healthcare chip back in. And it's scary. It's a scary scene. And Callahan is terrified as well. But they stabilize Baymax and Callahan gets away. And so then Hero has to go and do some soul searching after that scene, and then comes to realize that the rest of the team were right. They didn't sign up for this. They're not going to kill somebody. It's like, we were going to help you apprehend him and get him arrested, but we didn't sign up for this. And they're absolutely right. So that leads us into the big climax, the big fight at the end.
And that's when Baymax brings out Tadashi's video and shows his trial and error, and that kind of brings him back into focus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How long ago was this accident, and why was it not on the news?
It's all very secret, hush hush kind of stuff, right?
I know, but Callahan was like, he ran this school. If his daughter disappeared, you think that somebody would notice? Yes. Anyway, so you lead into the end fight, which is pretty impressive.
But you were talking about Hero finding the video. Tadashi says right to camera at one point, he's talking to Baymax, but he says, "I'm not giving up on you." And I think that's the turning point right there. But yeah, Cray is having a grand opening of a new campus facility, or, lab facility, or whatever that building was. And Callahan decides to take the opportunity to take this moment away from Cray, just like Cray took away his daughter, or as Callahan sees it. So using all these microbots that he's built, that he's reproduced, he reassembles that dimensional doorway over the building and is trying to suck up everything that Cray has built over the past few years into this other dimension. And the Big Hero 6 team turns up to stop him once again. Callahan kind of easily pushes them out of the way at first, individually, all stopping them in various ways with the microbots, until Hero again remembers Tadashi saying to use that big brain of yours, think of another angle. And that's what they all do. They escape their prisons of the microbots, and then Hero realizes in order to beat Callahan, they have to play his own game. So they start to work on smashing the microbots apart, hence they get sucked into the dimension. So, and they keep doing this until Callahan doesn't have enough microbots to work with. Baymax is getting readings from inside the dimensional doorway, and they realize that Callahan's daughter is still alive out there, and they go into the other dimension. Now, this is a beautifully rendered.
Yeah, this is crazy. I don't remember this at all. I said this at the beginning. I don't remember this end sequence at all, but it's basically the quantum realm. Marvel stole this again.
Pink and lavender clouds floating in my coffee. That's what it looks like.
It's like a rainbow Rorschach test. Yeah, it's a swirly, painty mess, and it's beautiful to look at.
And now it's got a ton of human garbage floating around in it, debris from Cray's demolished building.
Wouldn't it be funny if they brought her out and it was Janet Pym instead?
It was too early. They couldn't have done that. It was too early. It was early days back then.
Early days.
So yes, so then we get the big emotional moment where Hero and Baymax sort of have to say goodbye.
Well,
Bay-
Hero thinks he is saying goodbye to
Yeah.
Baymax.
Mhm.
Because Baymax, there's a piece of debris flies, and of course Baymax does what he's trying to do, which is to
Save,
help
protect.
protect. So
Yeah.
he protects Hero, but because of that, his like rocket thrusters in his boots are broken. And he realizes that the only way he can get to Dashi and Callahan's daughter out, Callahan's daughter's name's Abigail, is to use his rocket fist, which detaches. And of course, for Hero, this is really like losing to Dashi all over again.
Mhm.
Yeah. But as you were saying, Baymax knows it's
Mm-hmm.
not goodbye. Because, I will always be with you.
Mhm.
No, literally, he could have just told him just to give him some peace of mind that, the disc is in my fist. So you have to rebuild me. Unbeknownst to the audience, at one point, Baymax must take the chip out of his chest and he puts it in the rocket fist that he uses to propel Abigail and Hero out of the quantum realm, if you want to call it that, back into reality. And
We
then
just
you
did.
see Baymax floating, into the ether, floating away. So he's still out there, the original Baymax. But did he lose his consciousness? He must have if he took
I
out the
was going to
disc.
say, the minute he puts his chip out, then he loses that prime directive of
Yeah.
helping.
I think
He's
he
out
must have
there.
waited
It doesn't
until the
matter.
very last second.
Could be.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful movie. This is fully rendered. It's we stated before, the universe, the city that they live in is pretty impressive. Did it win Best Animated Feature?
It did.
It did, yeah.
It did win an Oscar. Yep.
There you go.
And I want to call out the score by Henry Jackman, which I really, really love. I'm actually quite a fan of his work. He's done a ton of stuff, but he also did Wreck-It Ralph, and his Wreck-It Ralph score is actually one of my favorites. There's a little piece in Wreck-It Ralph called Life in the Arcade, which I think is one of my favorite pieces of music from any movie, bar none. He did Winter Soldier,
Just
and I
awesome.
think he also does the music for the TV show as well. Weird fact about him, you'll appreciate this, Jim. His grandfather, Bill Jackman, played clarinet on When I'm 64.
Really?
Yes.
No idea.
Mhm.
Now you know.
But this is one of my favorite scores. I think he's
Huh.
a great composer. And if you aren't super familiar with his work, like, I mean, you've probably heard a ton of his stuff and don't
Right,
even
just not
realize it.
recognized.
Right.
Mhm.
I did find it interesting. Big Hero 6 is never mentioned, and you don't get the title until the very end. But that's when they all come together and become a team. But they
Yeah.
never actually refer to themselves as Big Hero 6.
And the credits are actually quite enjoyable because there's like little stories in them. One of them I think that's really cute is they deliver a scotch tape with a ribbon on
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Ribbon to the police station. Yeah.
No, my
Yeah.
favorite in the end credits was when they're eating at a diner and Hero's eating a burger and Baymax is flashing
Oh, yes,
vegetables
flashing
on his-
vegetables, right? It's like, mind your own business, sir.
Callahan did kind of get comeuppance. So that he's relieved to see his daughter alive at the end, but you see him, humiliated. He is head down and he knows that he's done wrong in the police car. But still, I would have liked at least an acknowledgement, at least that'll do, Hero. That'll do. You've bested me.
Oink.
I'm going to rate this very highly. I enjoy this I've seen this a lot because
You said this was
when my
Your
son was
son's-
4, we took him to the theater for the first time. We were very nervous because we didn't know if he was going to be fidgety, if he'd want to leave in the middle of
Sure.
it or what have
Yeah.
you. But we watched the whole thing.
My son has been staying to the end of the credits, I think, since the first movie he's ever been to. He actually never got tired of being in the theater when he was little.
Yeah.
So, but by the time Big Hero 6 came out, what'd you say? It's 2013,
14.
2014.
2014.
2014.
So he was 8 by then. So he was like perfect age for this.
Yeah. My son, we took him, his first Marvel was Iron Man. And we did sit through the credits, although he peed like 5 times. I'm like, kid, you're killing me here.
In the seat?
No, we had to get up every time. We had to leave. He
Mhm.
wasn't of age. I was going to allow him to go by himself. So we did leave. Yes. I peed in the seat, by the way. But that's another story. So there you go. Big Hero 6. I've
Yes.
never watched the animated series.
I saw the first episode and it was good, but I've
Yeah.
now with this viewing of the movie, I think I want to delve into the
Because it's
animated
all on
series.
it's on Disney Plus, right?
It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
No, and I didn't call out one of my favorite lines in the movie. Holy mother of Megazord.
Oh, did you the Gigantor clock? I didn't mention that in his bedroom. Yeah, that was good.
So okay, what kind of buckets would we give Big Hero 6? I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna go 4.5.
I too am going to say 4.5. This is also one of my favorites.
I gave it 4.25. So we're right there.
As we've been right in line with both movies this
There
week.
you go. We need these two franchises to meet up. Baymax and Thunder Force. Hero 6. That'd be fun.
I mean, I think there's enough going on in Thunder Force, in the backstory that they could develop it more and do more stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, Big Hero 6 is this was a successful film, and Disney normally runs to make sequels to everything on Earth, and they didn't make one for this. It's sort of akin to like the head scratchiness of why did it take so long for them to make a sequel to The Incredibles?
Well, that was Brad Bird. That was Brad Bird saying that he would never do one without a suitable script, and
which
I still don't.
Understandable. It's just like like how many
Strike when the iron's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, and this begs for a sequel. It absolutely begs for a sequel.
Well, I guess they figured an animated series was better, and you could,
But still, you do get to develop the story a lot more with a series than you would a movie. But I think this deserved a big screen sequel because just like most origin stories, it doesn't really start until the very end of the movie.
Right,
they are the team. They're Big Hero 6.
They are. Yep.
Speaking of that title, I just read something fascinating that in Korea, they just call it Big Hero because they didn't want people to think it was a sequel.
Like Leonard Part 6?
Like Part 6, yeah. Well, what about the other 5?
Right, correct. I can't go see this.
Yeah.
Big Hero 7 coming soon. So speaking of TV series.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're almost done.
Mm-hmm.
With this one, we've got two more left.
This is flying by.
And the whole world is watching. I feel sometimes with this show. That's the name of this episode.
I feel it's not getting the buzz that WandaVision did, but I think WandaVision, there was so much speculation. People were trying to guess things.
Well, this is more low key. It's got that espionage,
What? He's not.
Loki's coming too, but I just think WandaVision was flashier. It's understandable that got more headlines than this does. This is more of a gritty, like in your face kind of a drama.
Solid though. This is solid work that they're doing right here.
It is. It's very satisfying. The show is very satisfying.
Even though we are getting a very truncated story arc for Walker.
Oh, Walker. What hath you wrought, Mr. Walker?
You knew it was there was two big shocking moments in this that I did not see coming, I guess. So, but
at the beginning of the episode, I wrote down in my notebook, like, doesn't it seem like he's on amphetamines? Like
he's got this twitchy thing going on, especially once he does take the serum. You see there's this kind of unhinged thing going on with him, and it's very subtle with him put his his head in his hands at some point, or he's got this twitchy thing with his hand.
He's just angry and aggressive all the time, and that's really important because him and Hoskins have the conversation about how the serum just makes you more of who you already are.
And that's a great callback to Erskine when he was talking with Steve, which is this serum is just going to amplify what's inside of you. Good becomes great, bad becomes worse.
Right.
So
Hoskins clearly believes in Walker as his friend. So he sees the qualities that Walker has, he sees them as being positive. He's like, you made all these decisions under pressure and wartime situations, and you did this and that, and
but he's not alone. I mean, somebody had to decide that this guy was our guy, that he has these values or he has this work ethic that's going to stand for the shield. So somebody saw that as well.
But Walker is more like, now I've forgotten the name of the character, but there was another soldier that Tommy Lee Jones's character in First Avenger really wanted to be Captain America. He wanted him to take the serum. There was a big guy, and
Okay.
I don't know, he's the one that Haley Atwell punches out in the line because he's inappropriate to her. I don't know if you guys remember,
Yeah,
but
I don't remember that character's name though.
I've forgotten his
That's a good
character's name.
callback.
But Walker is more like that guy, right? Because Tommy Lee Jones is like, he's big, he's
Right.
strong, he does this and
Yeah.
that. Like, you
Yep.
know,
He's
he
the
is
perfect soldier.
right.
He does what we tell him to do, and
right. Like he's
Yeah.
aggressive. So it's
Yep.
like that's what Tommy Lee Jones's character wants for a guy with the super soldier serum.
yeah, because
But
that's
Erskine wants someone who's fundamentally compassionate. And I
Yeah.
think too, this plays back to what, you know, this thing where Sam doesn't understand why Steve gave him the shield.
But we're really starting to see because he is compassionate. You see him when he deals with Carly and when yeah. So
And but that was part of Sam's character again, like from the start. Like Sam was a counselor for soldiers who had PTSD.
And I'm glad they didn't forget that. And I'm glad
and he did
that
bring
into
it,
the show.
Yeah. So, but again, most people who are like that don't see themselves as heroes. They don't see themselves as, I'm just a good person. I'm just doing what's right, you know?
But think about even what Sam's job was, you know, before he became Falcon. He was para-rescue. He was a rescue soldier. You know, his job wasn't to go in and fight people, to kill people. It was to save people, you know, and that is why Steve gave him the shield. And that's why Steve obviously would never have wanted someone like John Walker.
No.
So that's why he said to Carly at the end of their conversation, "Are you satisfied with your care?"
He gave it a little hand gesture there.
But we start the episode. Remember, we had some Wakandan visitors.
That's right.
At the end of episode 3. And that plays through at the beginning of this one because they want Zemo. They are making no bones about the fact that they want Zemo. Bucky manages to talk them down for a little while at least because Zemo is an end to their means. They need Zemo to get to Carly. And with a very creepy callback to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and his Turkish
he pulled
delights.
such a white witch moment here with, you know, Edmund. Hey man, there's a Turkish delight. It's like Turkish delight. Has anybody ever had Turkish delight here?
Yeah.
And is it the end all to be all?
It's like a jelly candy. It's really an acquired taste.
So it's gross.
I mean,
if that's what you do as candy as a kid. I guess I just didn't have the Turkish in me. Yeah, because he immediately gets what the information they need from these kids by just bribing them. But Zemo, he's brilliant. I'm liking this character more and more.
And you knew you're just waiting. It was just a matter of when he was going to escape. You know, there was no way that they were going to hold on to him for the entirety of this show. The skirmish with the Royal Guard is kind of what sets Walker down this path of realizing
because
that
he gets completely beat down by these demolished women. But hey, he's like, they're not even super soldiers. I'm getting my ass kicked. Yeah. No,
well, just take a look at who's kicking your ass. You know, don't feel bad about this. They kick everybody's ass.
No, apparently
he
felt very bad about it. Right.
Right. Well, he says something to Bucky, like, it's so easy for you because you have that serum running in your veins. And like, just the look on Bucky's face, like, dude, this is not easy for me, you know? But also, like, again, this tells you where Walker's brain is. His brain is not in let's reach out to people, let's, you know, be a good representative of the US as Captain America. His thought is, I need to be able to beat down whoever I want to beat down when I want to beat them down. Like, Steve Rogers was never like that.
No. And the fact that, you know, Sam was able to go in and get Carly to talk, Walker's like, you got 10 minutes. And then he just bursts in there, ruins it all.
There's that one sequence where the vials of the super soldier serum are scattered. and Zemo sees them first. And you have this moment where, is Zemo gonna do it? Is he gonna take one of these things?
No, because he's so against it.
But I think that they tried to make you think that maybe he's thinking about it because he considers something, and
So you get
before
that
he
little
starts to stomp on them.
And I love those under the floor shots of him stomping on these blue vials, and it was nicely done. He destroying them. Obviously, he missed one because Walker found it
and pockets it.
And Sam is pretty appalled when he realizes that Walker's done it. He asks him, what have you done?
Yeah. And it's pretty instantaneous that he acquires these abilities. So, but
but also another trigger point is Battlestar.
This I did not see coming at all. This was a holy moment.
And it's sad because Hoskins is the only one who sort of seems to keep John Walker tethered to this earth.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think in the comics, it was his parents that died that kind of pushed him over the edge, but this makes much more sense. Again, we're getting a very truncated storyline for this character. And you do see, we've seen it from episode to episode that he is slowly becoming unhinged. And now that he's got the super serum, it's like nothing holding him back. And this really just kind of sets him loose. And it's sad.
But let's go back to parallels again. So Steve Rogers lost Bucky.
Yeah.
And he didn't act the way he could have killed Zola in that
absolutely.
moment. He could have done exactly what Walker did
Yeah.
and lose his mind because his best friend from his whole life, fell off this train and died, he thought, right?
Yeah.
And Sam lost his best friend too, right? He talks about Riley in Winter Soldier. And neither of them responded to this loss by going berserk and murdering somebody, So again, I feel like the show is always pulling you back very subtly to like what you already know about these characters in the films.
We did get a little Sharon action. Are we convinced now that she is not the power broker?
I am not convinced.
You think she's still playing him? She looked a little beat up though. Like she had a bloody lip, and I'm like, maybe that was from last episode.
Yeah, I think maybe it was from last episode.
I thought that was interesting. But...
I mean, I think it could go either way, but I think that there's definitely a possibility there. She's definitely a lot more wealthy than I would have thought for somebody who's on the run.
Yeah, she's pulling. We go to Latvia, and I immediately think Doctor Doom, but he's Latveria. So there's two other concepts.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, but I'm like, no, that's not the same place. Not the same place. No. But let's talk about there's a sequence, or there's a conversation between Carly and her second in command, Nico. And Nico says to her, as a kid, he was a Captain America fan. And the sad thing is that he is killed by the Shield.
Yeah.
At the end.
There's a little bit of Coulson written on it as well.
But isn't
Captain America fan?
Like it just unbelievably appalling in some way to see all the blood on the Shield.
And that's it's shocking because they wait until that very last upshot to show it to you. You see the blood on Nico's hands. You see the people, again, the title of this episode is the whole world is watching. Everyone's got their cameras trained on him. He's out in the middle of a friggin' Prague or wherever it is, Latvia. They did film in Prague, by the way. It's not the universal backlot this time. And it's a brutal takedown. He's just going to town on this guy. And then, that shot with the blood splattered all over the Shield. And you're just like, dude.
Yeah. So it makes what is going to happen next episode? They got to take the Shield away from him, but he's a super soldier now. So he's not going to give it up.
That's why we got to bring back War Machine. We're going to need some backup now. Sam did find the time to go and put his suit on. Bucky had to go find. Oh, what about the Dora Milaje taking off Bucky's arm with like 2 puncture points? That's like pressure points. She's like, boop, 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 and this thing just falls off. Sam's like, did you know they could do that?
That's like the Uma Thurman's heart explosion move in Kill Bill.
But he did when he put it back on. He did that whole arm twist around to kind of lock it back into motion, which is a callback to Winter Soldier. I thought that was.
But he was upset. He's like, if somebody could do that to me in like 3 moves, right? I didn't know that. Yeah.
They booby trapped his arm. It's like, here's a gift for you, but yeah.
If you ever fight us, we know how to take this off of you
That's right.
immediately.
Yep. Yeah, that was
I
very
mean, and he's
eye-opening.
not really fighting them. He's trying to stop them so they can
Correct.
talk and have a conversation. He's
Yeah.
clearly trying not to hurt them, but
It's amazing that Bucky's the voice of reason all of a sudden, huh?
but Io really establishes her dominance in that fight.
Oh, hell yeah. I was shocked when they did a little flashback to Wakanda when you see that, they finished conditioning him. That was 6 years ago. Like sometimes I guess I just lose track of like what the timeline is
Well,
for
there's
some of
the
this stuff.
5-year blip.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. That makes perfect sense.
So yeah, only 2 episodes left, and I can't wait to see, especially what they do with Walker, how this is going to play out in the following episode.
Yeah, you got to take him down. You can't leave him alive.
One thing I really have liked about this show is that throughout they've showed that like the experience of America has not been the same for everybody. So I didn't get a chance to talk to you guys about the first episode where Sam and Sarah go to try to get the loan.
Yeah.
And like you really have to question, if a white member of the Avengers was sitting across from that loan officer, would they have gotten the loan
Right,
even if
yeah.
they had
No,
had disappeared for 5 years?
Yeah.
And in the episode where they go to see Isaiah, where the police officer assumes
there's a lot of racial undertones going on
that
here.
Sam is harassing Bucky. And then in this one, Carly calls Sarah. She ends up threatening her. But in the course of the conversation, Sarah says, "My world doesn't matter to America, so why should I care about its mascot?" And I just like that this show is acknowledging that America does not represent the same thing to all people.
No. Yeah.
And it was sort of interesting because I said at the end of the show, Walker's supposed to represent America, and he's done this like super aggressive thing. And my son is a little cynical. He was like, "He does represent America, Mom." I was like, "I know. I mean, he's right. America has represented to a lot of people around the world like aggression, colonialism. Like it's not like some positive thing all the time." So yeah, I just think it's interesting how the show is sort of managing this, really sort of getting to the heart of the fact that Steve Rogers was an extraordinary person and that not just anybody can step in and be that.
I think Sam's going to realize that by the end. Like you said, 2 episodes left. So unfortunately, we cannot talk about next week.
Not until we get there, because we're still cooking up what we're going to offer you.
It's a secret. You're going to have to tune in. Sorry. I'm going to tune in and find out.
It'll be like a surprise grab bag.
Surprise! And that's what we should do with these movies. We should just put a whole bunch in the jar. Oh, hey, go back to your wheel.
Yeah, we go to the wheel, or I could just come up with whatever Amazon thinks that would like to watch next, and I can guarantee that it's going to be less than 3 out of 10 stars on IMDb.
I had a conversation with somebody on Facebook the other day. They were complaining how horrible the movies on Tubi are, and I'm like, but
it's free.
That's the glory of it, is that they're just bad movies, but there are some gems in there. We should do a Tubi-tacular, craptastic flicks. So,
when you guys can finally fulfill one of my husband's greatest dreams, and that we would review Prisoners of the Lost Universe. Prisoners of the Lost Universe.
And you would not have to talk about it or watch it. That could be a listener's request. Interesting. Well, I guess you're going to have to tune in and find out.
And of course, episode 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, it's coming to an end.
So next week, join us.
As always, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Thunder, thunder, thunder force.